Hey Army, it's me, Taehyung. I'm recording this late at night, just sitting here with some music in the background. I want to talk to you not as an idol, but as a person about something. People keep asking marriage and the name I mentioned. The room was quiet, dimly lit, and warm, not a press conference, but something far more personal. A small studio in Seoul, filled with jazz instruments, a vintage mic, and the faint scent of coffee and old wood. Taehyung sat there, cross-legged on the floor, his guitar resting beside him. The recording light blinked red, but he didn't start speaking right away. He took a breath. Sometimes, he said softly, people think I've figured out my life, that I'm living a dream, smiling every day, writing love songs for everyone else. But they don't know I've spent years wondering what love really means for me. The words floated in the quiet. His voice carried that deep, husky warmth, the kind that makes silence feel like music. He glanced at the camera lens as if he were talking to a friend or maybe to himself. I've never really talked about marriage, he continued, not because I don't believe in it, but because I never knew how to explain what I feel about it. I've seen people rush into it. I've seen people get lost in it. I've seen people protect it like a secret garden. For me, it was always something sacred. There was a pause. He smiled that half-smile fans knew so well. When I was younger, he said, I thought marriage was about promises. Now, I think it's about peace. Behind him, the light flickered slightly as if echoing the weight of his words. I remember once, he went on, I asked my mom what love really means. She said, love isn't a firework, it's a fireplace. It keeps you warm quietly. And I think that's what I want in marriage. Not something that burns bright and fast, but something that stays when the lights fade. He looked down for a moment, running his fingers over his bracelet, the one fans had noticed in every interview lately. I've been quiet about this, he said, because every time I talk about love, people start to imagine faces, rumors, stories. But this time, I don't want to hide behind metaphors. I want to be honest. The air grew still. He leaned closer to the mic. I think I've reached a point in my life, he said, where I'm not afraid of being real anymore. Fame is beautiful, but it's also lonely. I've met many people who smiled for the camera but cried in private. I don't want that for myself. He paused again. You see, marriage for me isn't about escaping loneliness. It's about finding a home, not a house. A person who feels like peace even in silence. He closed his eyes for a second, as if revisiting a memory. When I was filming Layover, I used to come home exhausted, and there was this one person who texted me just 3 words. You did well. That was it. No drama, no expectations, just quiet support. And I realized that's the kind of love I want for life. The tone shifted softer now, almost confessional. I looked up, and to answer the question everyone keeps asking, yes, I think about marriage. Not every day, not in a desperate way, but in a real human way. Like wondering what it would feel like to wake up beside someone who knows all your flaws and still chooses you. The camera light blinked. He took another deep breath, his voice low and sincere. I know people will talk. They always do. They'll analyze every name, every lyric, every post. But I just want you to know, whoever I marry one day, it won't be about headlines. It'll be about heartlines. He smiled gently, that soft, poetic expression that made every fan feel seen. And then came the moment, the one that would echo through every corner of social media later that night. If you ask me who she is, he said, pausing with that small knowing smile, I'll just say this. She's someone who taught me to love quietly. Someone who reminded me that I'm human first and an artist second. He didn't name anyone. He didn't need to. The silence after his words spoke louder than any confession could. The screen faded to black for a moment with the faint sound of a guitar string humming. Then his voice returned, calm, grounded, real. I'm not announcing anything. I'm not hiding anything either. I just wanted you, the people who've grown with me, to know that I believe in love, I believe in marriage. And when it happens, it'll be when I'm ready and when it feels like home. The light on the recording panel turned off. Taehyung sat there for a few seconds longer, staring at the reflection of himself in the dark screen. You can't fake peace, he whispered. And with that, he smiled, not the smile for cameras, but the one meant for himself. The next day, the clip had already gone viral. Every timeline, every article, every fan account carried the same question, who did he mean? But Taehyung wasn't scrolling through comments. He was sitting in the same studio, this time surrounded by quiet morning light and the soft rustle of paper. He was writing a letter, not to anyone in particular, maybe to himself. He spoke again, the camera already recording, though he didn't announce it this time. You know, he said quietly, it's funny. When I said those words yesterday, I didn't expect them to turn into headlines. But maybe that's how it works when you're honest. The world suddenly thinks you're confessing something. He smiled to himself, the kind of smile that hides a little ache. I've learned something over the years. People don't always want to understand you, they want to define you. And when you don't fit their definition, they fill in the blanks for you. He placed the letter down, fingers tracing the ink stains. But I guess that's part of my story now. Living in the space between what people think I am and who I really am. He looked up at the lens again, the morning sunlight catching his eyes. I think that's why marriage feels so sacred to me. It's the one part of life that I want untouched by noise. If I ever get married, I don't want the world to find out through photos or rumors. I want it to be something small, something real. He leaned back, eyes soft. Sometimes I imagine it. A small ceremony, maybe by the sea, no stage, no lights, no microphones, just two people promising to protect each other's peace. The sound of a dog barked faintly outside Yeontan, running around the hallway. Taehyung laughed quietly. Yeontan will probably be the first guest, he said, chuckling, his laughter filling the small room like sunlight breaking through clouds. Then his voice lowered again, deep and reflective. You know, Army always tells me they want me to be happy, and I believe them. I feel that love every day. But sometimes happiness doesn't look like what people expect. It's not always concerts or big stages. Sometimes it's just making ramen with someone you care about at 2 a.m. He paused, eyes distant, as if replaying a memory only he could see. There was one night, years ago, when I was so tired I couldn't even speak, and she stayed up just to make sure I ate something before sleeping. She didn't say much, just smiled and said, "You look tired, Taehyung. Rest?" His voice softened even more. That's when I realized Real love doesn't demand attention, it just stays quietly. He reached for his guitar again, fingers brushing over the strings. The thing is, he said, I know people want to know who she is, but love doesn't need a face to be real. It's not about the name, it's about the feeling. He strummed a soft chord. It's about coming home after a long day and hearing, you did well today. It's about being accepted when you're at your weakest. That's marriage to me. Not the wedding, not the fame, the quiet love that lasts after everything else fades. He took another pause, letting the words breathe. When I was younger, I thought being seen was everything, that the more people watched you, the more real you became. But now, I think being understood by one person is worth more than being seen by millions. He looked directly into the lens again, as though speaking to every fan personally. I'm grateful, truly, for everyone who's watched me grow. You've seen me smile, cry, change, disappear, and return. But I hope you also remember I'm human. I get lonely. I need love just like anyone else. His expression softened into something vulnerable, raw. I've learned that fame doesn't protect you from emptiness. Sometimes it makes it worse. You can be surrounded by lights, applause, and still feel invisible inside. And I don't want to live that way anymore. He adjusted his mic slightly. I think that's why I spoke up yesterday. Not to shock anyone, but because I wanted to breathe again, to speak without fear of what headline it might create. Just to say yes, I believe in marriage, in love, in building something real. And maybe I already met someone who showed me what that means. He stopped. A faint smile tugged at his lips, but he didn't elaborate. Instead, he whispered, that's enough honesty for today. He reached for a glass of water and took a small sip, his hands trembling slightly, like someone who just said more than they intended. Then he leaned toward the camera again. I'm not perfect, he said, but I want to live in truth, not performance. So if someday I disappear quietly for a while, just know that I'm living, not hiding. The camera zoomed out slowly, showing him sitting alone in the soft daylight, a man not running from fame, but finally walking toward peace. He looked out the window one last time. You can't fake love, he said softly. You can only grow into it. The music in the background swelled a gentle hum of jazz, the kind of tune that sounds like nostalgia. And just before the frame faded to black, Taehyung added one last line, the kind that would stay with fans long after the video ended. Maybe one day, he said, when the noise is gone and the world feels quiet again, I'll tell you her name. But for now, let's just call her Peace. That night, Seoul was wrapped in rain. The kind that doesn't pour, it lingers, whispering against glass like a secret that refuses to leave. Taehyung sat near the window of his apartment, a record spinning softly in the background. Chet Baker's trumpet filled the silence between the raindrops. He looked at his phone once, saw the endless messages, then turned it face down. The world was still talking about his words, but he wasn't thinking about trends or reactions anymore. He was thinking about why he finally said them. He opened his journal, the one he carried during tours, the one filled with sketches, lyrics, and small confessions written at 3 a.m. He began to read one page aloud, his voice steady but low. You can hide behind music for only so long. Eventually, the song ends, and all that's left is the echo of your truth. He looked up, half smiling. I wrote that a few years ago, he said. Back then, I didn't have the courage to live by it. I thought if I stayed quiet, I could protect everything I loved, my fans, my career, even that person. But silence can be its own kind of lie. He reached for a cup of tea, watching the steam twist into the air. When you've spent half your life performing, you start to forget which parts of you are real. The line between the stage and your heart disappears, and I didn't want that anymore. He paused, thinking, so why now? He repeated softly, answering the unspoken question everyone had. Because I've learned that timing doesn't always wait for comfort. Sometimes you have to speak when your heart starts shaking before fear convinces you to stay quiet forever. His tone grew deeper. A few months ago, I attended a friend's wedding. It was small, just family, no reporters, no spotlights. And during the ceremony, when they looked at each other, I felt something shift inside me. I realized how simple love can be when it's honest. It doesn't need to perform. He leaned closer to the mic. I think that moment stayed with me. It reminded me that I don't want my story to end with applause. I want it to continue in peace. The rain outside thickened. The camera caught the reflection of city lights running down the glass. I know people think idols don't have normal lives, he said quietly, but I do normal things. I feed my dog, I burn toast, I forget my keys, and sometimes I miss someone. He laughed softly, almost shyly. That's the part people forget. We still fall in love. We still dream of family. The difference is our dreams get judged before they even start. He set his cup down. I didn't speak yesterday to create noise, he said, his tone suddenly firmer. I spoke because I wanted freedom. To say, yes, I want to get married someday. Not because I'm rushing, but because I finally understand what it means. He shifted slightly, the chair creaking under him. For me, marriage isn't about perfection. It's about staying when things aren't beautiful. It's about choosing the same person every day, even when the world outside is changing. He looked away from the camera for a moment, then whispered, and maybe it's also about forgiveness. His eyes lowered. There was a time when I hurt someone I loved because I thought success had to come first. I thought emotions could wait. But when you lose someone because of pride, you realize no trophy feels the same. The record in the background reached a soft trumpet solo. I remember calling her one night, he said, not to ask for anything, just to hear her voice. She said, Taehyung, you sound tired. And I told her, I'm not tired, I'm just empty. He swallowed. She said something I'll never forget. Then fill yourself with truth, not applause. That's when I started writing again. That's when I started healing. He smiled faintly, almost to himself. Maybe that's why I spoke now. Because love doesn't disappear, it changes form. Sometimes it turns into art, sometimes into lessons. But it always leaves something inside you that never goes away. He stood up, walking toward the window. The camera followed him slowly. The city glowed below, thousands of lights blinking like constellations. People will always ask me who she is, he said softly. But maybe that question isn't important anymore. What matters is who I'm becoming because of her. He rested his forehead against the glass, watching the rain slide down. I'm learning to love without fear, to speak without masks, to exist without pretending. The music shifted again, slow piano now, almost lullaby like. He turned back to the camera, a hint of peace in his expression. Marriage isn't the end of freedom, he said. It's a different kind of freedom, the kind where you don't have to hide your heart anymore. He let the sentence linger, then added softly. And when that day comes, I hope you'll all understand that I didn't choose between love and music. I chose both. The rain softened to a drizzle. The room dimmed. Taehyung walked back to his seat, gently picked up his guitar, and began to play a melody. Slow, intimate, full of warmth. No lyrics this time, just music. And in that sound, you could almost hear everything he didn't say out loud. The memories, the apologies, the quiet promise of peace. As the final note faded, he whispered almost inaudibly, I think she would smile if she heard this. Fade to black. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from members, staff, and even friends overseas. Jungkook had texted, Hyung, did you just say her name on live? Followed by 3 skull emojis. I laughed, but deep down, I knew this was the moment that couldn't be undone. During breakfast, my manager looked at me seriously. Taehyung, do you realize what you did? He asked. I nodded. I mentioned someone important, that's all. He sighed, rubbing his temples. You know how the media will twist it. They'll make it sound like you're getting married tomorrow. I smiled softly. Then let them talk. For once, I want to be honest about how I feel. Later that day, I went for a drive alone. The streets of Seoul felt quieter than usual. Or maybe it was just me being lost in my thoughts. The city that once felt like a playground now felt like a mirror reflecting my every fear, my every dream, and the truth I could no longer hide. I remember when I was younger, sitting on the rooftop of the old practice building, staring at the night sky and thinking about the future. I had no idea what love would look like back then. All I knew was that I wanted to find someone who would see Kim Taehyung, not V from BTS. And now that I had found her, I finally understood what that meant. Love wasn't about the spotlight. It was about the quiet moments when you could just be yourself. No cameras, no expectations. Just warmth. When I got back to my place, I saw dozens of articles already trending. Taehyung mentions mysterious name during live. ARMY reacts to Taehyung's marriage talk. Who is the woman Taehyung referred to? It was all over every social platform. Clips of my live were being edited, replayed, analyzed frame by frame. Some fans were laughing, others were emotional. Some said they could see a new glow in my eyes. But the most touching thing, ARMY's defending me. Comments like, if Taehyung's happy, we're happy. And he deserves love like anyone else. Reading those made my chest tighten. For so many years, I'd given my heart to music, to performances, to the fans, and now they were giving that love back to me in the most beautiful way. That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned on the small lamp by my bed, opened my notebook, and started writing lyrics. Words just flowed about commitment, courage, and the kind of love that doesn't need to be hidden anymore. Would you wait for me? I whispered, almost as if she could hear. Even if the world watches? I imagined her smile, soft and reassuring. That was enough to calm me. Before I turned off the light, I posted a short message on Weavers. Thank you for understanding me. I spoke from the heart. Let's keep walking together. Within minutes, hundreds of comments flooded in full of purple hearts, warmth, and support. And in that quiet moment, I realized something. Marriage isn't just about two people promising forever. It's about being brave enough to let the world see who you love and still choosing to love anyway. For the first time, I wasn't afraid anymore. The following days felt surreal. Everywhere I went, people whispered not in a cruel way, but with curiosity. Every time I stepped out, I could feel their eyes, their questions, their fascination with this new version of Taehyung who talked about marriage. At first, I thought I could handle it. I told myself I was ready for whatever storm would come. But when the headlines began to multiply, I realized how powerful words could be when they left your mouth in a moment of honesty. Taehyung confirms relationship. V of BTS planning marriage soon. Taehyung's mystery woman finally revealed. The articles stretched the truth, twisted sentences, and took my silence as confirmation. My team was panicking. We need to release a statement, one of them said, scrolling through endless notifications. If we don't, this will get out of control. But I wasn't angry. Not this time. I just sat quietly reading the comments. Some armies were protective, saying, whatever makes him happy, we'll support him. Others were heartbroken, asking, is this the end of our era? And then there were those who simply said, he's human too. I smiled when I read that, because that was exactly it. I was human too. That night, I met with her again. We hadn't seen each other since the live stream went viral. When she walked into the cafe, her expression was soft but uncertain. You really mentioned me? She asked. I looked at her and nodded slowly. I did, and I don't regret it. She let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. You're crazy, you know that? The whole world is talking about it. I know, I said, but for once, I wanted to be real. I didn't want to keep pretending that love is something I should hide. She went silent for a while, just looking at me. The cafe lights reflected in her eyes, gentle, steady, like a promise. You've always been brave, she whispered, even when you're scared. We talked for hours about the chaos, the fear, the love, and the quiet dream of building something that lasts beyond fame. There was a peace in her presence, the kind of peace that fame could never buy. When we stepped outside, Seoul's night air felt different, softer, realer. Do you ever think about marriage? I asked, breaking the silence. She smiled faintly. Not the kind people imagine. I just want a simple life. Someone who comes home tired but still smiles when he sees me. Someone who remembers to hold my hand even when it's raining. I felt my throat tighten. That sounds like the kind of forever I want too. And in that moment, I realized something profound. I wasn't just talking about marriage in theory anymore. I was speaking from a place of truth. A quiet desire to love openly, without masks, without boundaries. The next morning, I opened my phone and saw a message from Namjoon. You did something no one else dared to do, Taehyung. You spoke from the heart. Don't let anyone take that away from you. I stared at his words for a long time. It reminded me why we started all this music, art, connection. It was never about being perfect, it was about being real. Later that week, I wrote another note to ARMY on Weverse. I believe love should never be hidden. Thank you for listening to me even when I speak from the most vulnerable part of my heart. The replies came like waves, soft, emotional, full of warmth. We're proud of you, Taehyung. Love is something you deserve too. We'll be here always. Reading those words, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe this was what growing up meant. Not running from love, but embracing it, even under the brightest lights. When the night came, I stood on my balcony again, the same place where I once doubted myself. The sky above was endless, painted with stars that didn't need to hide. And I thought maybe that's what I am too, a star learning that it's okay to shine even when the world is watching. It's strange how life can feel both overwhelming and peaceful at the same time. After the chaos of that week, I started to notice how quiet the world became again. The noise from the headlines began to fade, and in its place came a gentle calm, the kind that follows after a storm has finally passed. Every morning felt a little lighter. I'd wake up, make coffee, and watch the sunlight move slowly across my apartment walls. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to hide parts of myself. I wasn't afraid of the whispers anymore. I was just being. When I went to the studio one night, I sat alone with my guitar. The room was dimly lit, and there was that familiar hum of quiet electricity in the air. I began strumming absentmindedly, and soon the chords turned into something soft, honest, a melody that felt like home. The lyrics came naturally. I found love in the quiet places where fame can't reach and time moves slow. I found someone who sees me even when the lights go low. As I sang those words, I smiled. That song wasn't just about her. It was about me too, about learning to love myself again, learning to be real even when the world expected perfection. A few days later, I went live again. It wasn't planned. I just turned on the camera late at night, hair messy, wearing a hoodie. Thousands joined in instantly. I could see comments flooding in hearts, greetings, endless love. Hey Army, I said softly. I know a lot's been said these past few days. I've read your messages, all of them. Thank you for the love, for the patience, for reminding me that I don't have to hide who I am. I took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. When I talked about marriage, it wasn't about rushing into anything. It was about being honest about what I dream of. Someday I want a simple life, a warm home, laughter, someone to share small things with. That's all. The comments came faster. You deserve it. We'll wait for that day. We're proud of you. I smiled. You know, Army, sometimes I think you understand me better than I understand myself. You've seen me through every chapter, the boy who dreamed, the man who learned to love, and the person who's still finding balance between the two. I looked directly at the camera as if speaking to each fan personally. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that love shouldn't be feared. Whether it's love for your family, your friends, your dream, or someone special, never hide it. Love is meant to be shared. For a few seconds, I stayed silent, just listening to the flood of hearts and messages appearing on the screen. It felt intimate, like I was talking to millions, yet somehow to one person at a time. Then I added quietly, I don't know what the future holds, but I promise whatever happens, I'll always be honest with you. I'll always speak from the heart. I waved at the camera and whispered, "Good night, Army. Thank you for letting me be me." When I turned off the live, I sat back feeling an unfamiliar sense of peace. The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock. I realized that in being vulnerable, I hadn't lost anything. I had gained more connection, more understanding, more love than I ever imagined. Later that night, I sent her a message. "The world knows now, but it feels okay. I think this is what honesty feels like." She replied simply, "I'm proud of you." I smiled, put my phone down, and looked out the window. The moon hung low and golden over Seoul, like a quiet witness to everything that had just unfolded. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of two worlds, Taehyung the artist and Taehyung the man. I was just one person, whole and real. The stars outside blinked faintly, almost like they were cheering me on. Maybe love wasn't meant to be perfect. Maybe it was meant to be true. You know, Army, uh, sometimes I sit and wonder how all of this even began. One small conversation, one honest moment, and suddenly the whole world was listening. It's strange, isn't it? How something so personal can echo so far. But maybe that's what connection really means. When I first talked about marriage, I didn't say it to make headlines or start rumors. I said it because I wanted to be honest. For years, I've kept so many things to myself: fears, thoughts, dreams. But that night, I just wanted to speak from my heart. I didn't expect it to go viral. I didn't expect the world to analyze every word. But maybe that's what needed to happen. Because through all of this, I realized something important. Love isn't a secret to be hidden. It's a part of who we are. Whether it's love for family, friends, music, or someone special, it shapes us. It teaches us how to care, how to understand, and how to be brave enough to show our real selves. There were days when I was scared that people would judge me, or that they'd stop seeing me the same way. But Army, you proved me wrong. You reminded me that love doesn't divide us, it connects us even deeper. You showed me that I can be Taehyung, not just the artist, not just the performer, but the person who laughs, loves, and sometimes struggles like anyone else. I want to thank you for that, for listening, for understanding, for protecting my heart even when I didn't ask you to. You've seen me grow, from the boy who was shy about showing emotions to the man who can finally say, "I want something real." That means more to me than you'll ever know. When I think about the future now, I don't see it as something far away or untouchable. I see it as something simple: mornings with soft sunlight, laughter over breakfast, music playing in the background. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's honest. And I think honesty is the most beautiful thing we can give each other. To every army who sent a message, left a comment, or just smiled quietly while watching, thank you. You made me feel safe enough to speak freely. You made me realize that being loved doesn't mean losing yourself. It means being accepted for exactly who you are. So tonight, wherever you are, whether you're lying in bed, studying, walking home, or watching the stars, I hope you feel a little warmth from this story. Because it's not just my story, it's ours. Thank you for listening, Army. Thank you for staying by my side through every chapter, every change, every confession. Good night, Army.